my dear friends and net aspirants, welcome back to High Point again, a place where you can get enough materials related to English language and literature. If you are a net aspirant of English literature, or you are a BA or MA student of English literature, then you are in right place. Here we have too many things related to English literature, and we will have too many things in the future too. So like you can see, today's topic is postcolonialism and cultural studies, okay? And this lecture belongs to the video series known as cultural studies that we have already started. I hope you have followed them one by one, and the playlist, the link to the playlist of cultural studies, I have given that in the I button. If you have missed any of the previous videos, you can go to that I button and click it, and you can watch them all. See, I suggest that you watch one by one from the beginning, because all these things are linked together. It's very much needed that you know certain concepts related to cultural studies and know them better in a more than in a normal way. Not just the meaning of the word is needed here in cultural studies. You know the concept behind the terms, and whenever we discuss something, I won't discuss that concept that we have already seen in the previous video again and again, okay? So postcolonialism and cultural studies, so that's the topic of this video. And if you remember our lecture about methods adopted in cultural studies, there I have discussed that cultural studies is an interdisciplinary subject of studies. See, we are using various type of theories, concepts and methods to do cultural studies of various things, of events or objects or cultural artifacts or whatever it is, whatever that comes under culture as such in a society. So postcolonialism, as far as a society is concerned, especially in 20th century, postcolonialism emerged as an important discipline, as an important plane of literature, as an important theory of literature, we can see. So what is postcolonialism? Let me give you first of all a brief introduction about postcolonialism before the actual beginning of this video, okay? About postcolonialism as a literary theory, we will deal this particular topic in literary theory and criticism in detail when the time comes there. And postcolonialism is mainly indicates, that term indicates a particular time period in history. It denotes a chronology. That means postcolonialism means after colonialism. See, most of the lands on this planet were colonized by European countries. Most of them were colonized by Britain, and some other non-European lands and territories were colonized by European powers, European imperial powers, countries. And in India we can see that mainly it was Britain, then Poland was there, Dutch was there, Spain also made colony here. So in that way, India experienced colonialism more than 200 years, and towards the middle of the 20th century we gained our independence, right? In 1947 we gained our independence. Most of the territories, other colonies on this planet, they also gained their freedom in the second half of the 20th century. So postcolonialism has an impact upon people's mind and culture, the way in which they experience how they are representing certain things, and how they are perceiving and communicating with each other. So let me first of all tell you this, that the whole operation of postcolonialism was about amalgamation and amassing of wealth, right? The Britain actually amassed huge amount of money from all over its lands and colonized lands or colonized territories, like in the form of tax and many more. And also it's like colonial lands, these colonies, they experienced drainage of wealth to these imperial powers. So it's mainly an operation, financial operation, in which the gain was all of made by whom? the imperial powers, and colony people or the colonies left without any wealth, without any financial sustainability. Okay, so after colonialism, during the time of post-colonialism, even now we can see that the first world countries, they have a hold upon third world countries. Even now, as they established, see, the first world countries, they have many more industries. Their industries were financed by the finance draw or financial flow from colonies. So they have big industries, big factories and all. They are financially settled. So they have, after colonialism, they cannot directly exercise their power over colonies. So what they will do, that what they have done, first world countries, they have established their industries, their factories inside the third world countries, and they actually having profit by selling their product to the people of the colonized lands or people of the post-colonial land. Okay, in that way they have an indirect control over the financial system of post-colonial third world countries. So from that context, you have to analyze, you have to connect post-colonialism and cultural studies. Now let's see an introduction about the post-colonialism and cultural studies. So globalization has sustained engagement with and influence on local culture. So what is globalization? Simply it's trade, because of trade between lands, communication between lands. So the service that we have here, we can actually export that service or object or product to the other lands, and from the distant lands we can have their service and their products in our land. Simply globalization is this kind of give and take, and have global kind of financial profits. So globalization has also, they have engagements and influence on local cultures. Because of globalization only, we have international brands of dress, international brands of things that we are using. See, even now I'm using a laptop and many more gadgets to record this video, record my screen of the laptop. So how come I am able to use them? How come I have access to this? Because of globalization. So it has an influence on local culture. Some critics argue that we need to analyze globalization through the lens of post-colonialism. So globalization is very much connected to post-colonialism. See, who all are the kings of globalization? Who all are actually, they, even though directly they don't have any, see, these first world countries, they don't have any direct control over third world countries and the finance of these countries, but they have, even though they don't have any direct control, they are controlling third world countries production and consumption and their culture in an indirect way. See, I have certain services, foreign services and foreign products in my land, in my territory, in the corner of my street. There is a shop, it is available there, but still what are available within my territory may not be as famous globally as it seems, right? See, some products, take the example of Levi's jeans. It is so popular here. We can have them in one of the shops that is there in the corner of my street. But the production or the local thing that are produced in my land may not have such an applicability globally. It is not available elsewhere on the planet. So in that way, in globalization too, first world countries, they are gaining more. So that's why critics argue that we need to analyze globalization through the lens of post-colonialism. Globalization is a great thing that happened, that influenced every other cultures, or actually mixed every other culture together, and this need to be looked through the lens of post-colonialism. And globalization also has a racialized nature of globalized or globalizing culture. See, white people's racialized nature of globalization means that Western products and Western services are more kind of legitimized kind of products, and they are trustworthy, and they are circulating more, while Eastern things are viewed in a different way. They are viewed more like ethnic kind of things, and they are they are portrayed in such a different way, so globalization also has an racialized side in it. Globalization, it doesn't mean that it's completely neutral about all these kind of oppressed ideas, all these kind of notions. Think about Hollywood production of cinema and how poor countries and Asians are presented in them. So you can think like this, Hollywood cinema is considered as a kind of world cinema, right? And Hindi film or Bollywood cinema, it is also happening in this world only, and the cinema produced in any other country, even though they are aesthetically more valuable, aesthetically more satisfying, but still Hollywood industry has a more privileged position, right? How come that happened? That's one side. Another side is that Hollywood cinema, look at Hollywood cinema, how these Asian countries, and how especially Indians or Asians or Chinese people, how they are portrayed in Hollywood produced cinemas. They are presented as poor, dirty, and they are presented as more cultureless, more in a way shady, or more in a way like they are not educated. So in that way Hollywood cinema presents poor countries or Asian countries or third world countries, while the situation is not like that. See, initially some centuries back, Indians or Asians were, especially Indians, were considered as snake charmers. So it is another version of this thing, this concept about Asians, that Asians are like this, they think in this way, they are so they are so adamant about their religion, they are so poor, and they are so uneducated. So this kind of stigmas are associated to Asians, or especially to Indians. So this representation, this identity of Western people about the Eastern people, they are portrayed and they are represented in Hollywood produced cinemas. So this and Hollywood produced cinemas, they go well in Asians and these poor third world countries, and they are premiered and they have their success in these countries. So in a way they are mocking at us, and we are paying for that. So they also have some sort of financial gain through their premieres happening in Asian and poor countries. So how this premieres happening, how could a Hollywood film can be premiered in India or in any other Asian countries or third world countries? That happened because of globalization. So globalization has this kind of racialized nature associated to it, that you have to think about. Now let's move on to what is the connection between cultural studies and postcolonialism. Simon Turing outlines a set of reasons for connecting postcolonialism with globalization studies in her Postcolonialism and Globalization towards a historization of their interrelation, which came out in 2000. Simon Turing came up with a set of actually mainly three reasons about how and why we should connect postcolonialism with the globalization studies or cultural studies in her work Postcolonialism and Globalization towards a historization of their interrelation, which this work came out in 2000, the year 2000. So first reason she gives is that all culture is now linked with a supply of money. See, now a global trade is happening. We can have a service and product, we can sell them in global market. That means in on this entire planet, anywhere if you find a potential buyer, you can sell them. The same way you will get global products from global market. From anywhere in this world you can have access to any other product if you have money to buy that. So in that way it is linked. The world, all over the world, is linked because of trade, and trade is all about money and profit. So all culture is now linked with the supply of money, and all cultures now have transnational subsidiaries, opponents, or collaboration. Transnational means which goes beyond nationalities, national boundaries. Okay, so all culture has now collaborations or opponents that goes beyond the geographical boundary of a nation. Okay, so that every other culture is linked with money because of this global trade, and also all culture has now a kind of they have for their trades, for their business, for their industry, they have opponents and collaborations which are going beyond the national boundaries or national geographical boundaries of the culture or nation. And cultures are no more territorial and hence do not coerce or fuse into whole or traditions. So we can see that since every other culture is linked with each other, and cultures has transnational opponents and collaboration, that means culture is not territorial, culture is non-existent within a certain territory. It actually has an influence, and it has actually overflowing the boundaries and frontiers of a nation, and this is no more a territorial thing which is existing in a particular place. Indian culture, take the example of culture that is there in India, then you can see that Indian culture does not occupy solely or only in the Indian territory. It goes beyond, as it has links to other cultures, other nations, and it has collaborations and opponents in other nations throughout the world, right? So it does not, we cannot mention culture, we cannot see culture which is territorial, and also it is not fusing or it is not wholly telling about traditions. So since it is not territorial, it is non-existent only in a territorial, it goes beyond. Because of that, we cannot say that the tradition, the culture is all about our own inborn traditions and all. It goes beyond that. So we can see the example of global fashion changes are determined less by local conditions and values than a circulation of global fashion patterns. So we can see that, globally there is a fashion, take the example of dressing style. There is a global fashion style. In a season there will be a particular fashion style, and in another season there will be something else. So it is not dependent upon the local traditions that we have as far as our dressing style is concerned, but sometimes our local dressing style will be influenced by this global fashion changes. Okay, so that's how we can mix and match the western wears and the local traditional wears. See, we will wear a kurti with Levi's jeans, and we will also go for a local sandal, and also will go for a branded branded kind of shade, or we will use such glasses or cooling glasses we'll use. So in that way, global fashion is not affected by the local conditions, but local fashion can be affected with the global changes. Cultures and traditions are therefore modified not with the local culture in mind, but with the global patterns. So culture and tradition, they are not now changing, and changes are occurring in cultures and tradition not because people are communicating, not only because people are communicating each other inside a society, but it has a communication with the outside society. It is getting influenced by the global changes happening not only in fashion world, but also in every other world, in trade, in culture, in production and consumption, the perceptions, global perceptions and all. So everything is influencing culture and traditions. It is not that the global culture has influenced by some local traditions and local patterns, but it goes it goes reverse, like the local culture will get influenced by the local patterns and global patterns and global changes happening in every other sphere. So in order to study a culture which is not now grounded in a particular place, particular geography, it is necessary that you study how these global changes are affecting a particular culture. So that's how it is connected. Globalization is connected to whom? Connected to globalization is connected to culture of a society or a land or a particular place. Colonialism is a kind of globalization where the European settlers imposes his culture mode on the colony, even as he adapts and appreciates local cultures. So colonialism, if you could see, colonialism is a kind of globalization in which, you know, the colonizers, European settlers, they came to non-European lands and they claimed their culture as superior, and they imposed through power and through various techniques, through education and all, using various institutions, they imposed their cultural mode on the colony as an ideal kind of culture, as a more elevated and superior kind of culture. And while they were imposing their mode of culture, they were also adapting and got influenced and appreciated local culture. So colonialism is also a kind of globalization. The current globalization is more synonymous with Americanization. Americanization means everywhere we can find American products. See, if you are using Google in your phone, it's like, you know, for in order to search something. If you are using GPS, you know, many more products that we and services that we are using, which are produced and given by America. So everywhere we can find Americanization. We are using American products and American services. That's how Americanization is happening globally. So the current globalization, it is synonymous, or it is more or less equal with Americanization. And current culture is also a mode of cultural exchange, appropriation and marketing. So just like colonizers did, they came to our land and they imposed their cultural modes on our land. The same way, in this current globalization, America has more power over any other country, and they are imposing their services and their products and everything, their culture through their products and services. What they are doing, they'll emphasize and impose their culture, right? So they are doing what the colonizers did some centuries back. And current culture also, it's a kind of cultural exchange. And appropriation means what? We actually modify, we appropriate things according to our need. And marketing. So current culture is also doing, it's about cultural exchange, since culture is not about a geographical culture anymore. It is affected by the global culture and globalization, the global industry. It is a mode of exchange that we take something from their culture and we will give something to that culture. So it's an exchange, and it's an appropriation and marketing. So cultural studies focus upon the role of globalizing finances and markets in the formation of cultures. So cultural studies, when we see globalization as a new kind of colonization that is happening now, cultural studies is now focusing upon the role of globalizing finances and markets in the formation of cultures. How? Since now culture is not, culture is deterritorized. It is no more about a culture of tradition. It is no more about a culture existing in a particular place and time. It is actually about cultural exchange happening between different kind of community, different kind of group of people. So cultural studies focus upon this globalizing finances. So globalization is all about money and profit, exchanging products, and also as this happening, we can see that culture is also getting exchanged. So it is about globalizing finances. So cultural study now focus upon the globalizing finances and markets in the formation of culture. So how these two things, the global finance and markets, global markets, how this is affecting or impacting upon cultures, how this is resulting upon the formation of certain tendencies in a culture. So we can see the example of Hindi films here. Okay, we can see that Hindi films, it's a great financially affluent, it's a wonderful industry, right? Financially affluent industry, and Hindi films got many more fans all over the world. And we can see now that how Hindi films being financed by non-resident Indians. Like Indian people are not, sometimes non-resident Indian people, non-resident Indians, or foreign people even, they are in financing Indian films, Hindi films. And also we can see that Hindi films and their popularity in other countries where both non-resident Indians and other watch them. So it's not that Hindi films only got audience who are Indians or who knows Hindi, but Hindi films got audience who all are not at all residents of India, or they don't have any roots in India, or foreign people, they are watching them. The stage shows performed by Hindi film stars abroad, extending Bollywood culture in other ways. So see, in this way we can see Hindi films as a cultural construct, as a cultural event happening, or cultural artifact. As films concerned, films are cultural artifacts. So see, it got, not only Hindi films are watched by Indian people, but they are watched by non-resident people, or even by foreigners. Indian films got, or Hindi films got fans, foreign fans. So in that way it has a cultural kind of it's not that Hindi films are restricted in Indian land only, or people who knows, or among, it is not restricted among the people who knows Hindi language, but it is now more globalized kind of things, and it got affected by other industries, like it got affected and influenced by Hollywood film industry or any other film industry, and it may have some opponents and collaboration in this field too. So in that way, if you are studying about Hindi films, it is not sufficient that you study about Hindi films as a thing existing in Indian territory, but globally you have to study about its global financing side and how it is marketed throughout the planet, how it is marketed throughout the lands, and how it is forming a part of culture, not only in India but also various other places and cultures. Okay, the presence of American food products or clothing does not mean an extensive Americanization is on, because a culture cannot be reduced to its goods or product. So when we see that globalization is happening and trade is happening, and we are consuming the product, so Americanization is not simply the dissemination of American food products and fashion, clothing and many more services throughout the world. That is not only mean by Americanization, because a culture, we cannot reduce a culture into some goods or products, but it got some more ideologies behind it, so that need to be studied. Simply studying about goods and product and how they are present in a society is not enough, because culture is not only about goods and products, but there is a great ideology and mechanism goes behind it. So Americanization simply does not mean that that we can have American food products and clothings in our street, in our land, but it goes beyond that. At the same time, these are not merely products, they often carry cultural values. See, cultural values that they are carrying. If you are having KFC, if you are having Levi's jeans, if you are having if you are enjoying Bollywood cinema or cinema serials, web series, then that product, you should not view that product and that American product. If you are studying these things, you have to study from you have to study the cultural value that it covers, that it brings about. So then only cultural studies and post-colonial studies are valued in its true sense. Simply goods or products does not mean that it's an extensive kind of westernization is going to happen or is happening. But if you think about the cultural values that it spread, these cultural products and goods are spreading, then that is more valuable in cultural studies. So post-colonial studies must be conscious of. So if you are studying cultural studies using the theory of post-colonialism, then you must be conscious of a material nature of any particular product or object. So what type of material nature of any particular product or object? See, take the example of a fruit product or a dress style or a dress item or a we can say a service it provides. So what kind of a material nature, how it manifests before the consumer, that is need to be studied first of all. And the marketing and symbolic values associated to the object. See, symbolic values means what? See, when you are wearing a jeans, that shows that you are a kind of modern person, right? At the same time, when you are wearing it with kurti, you portray yourself that you appreciate Western things, and at the same time you like the ethnic things that are there in your culture. And you know, everything got a symbolic value. So what kind of marketing and symbolic values are assigned to the object while it is presented to the consumers of a particular culture? The economic gains and losses with the arrival of global products. See, when certain objects, certain services and certain things are global things, or especially foreign things are there in a society, comes in a society, you can see that some ethnic things, indigenous things got reduced, their product got reduced, they have to face massive amount of losses because of the arrival of global products. So we can see what kind of economic gains and losses are happening because of the arrival of global product, and the share of the local culture economy in the production of profit of the global product. So we can see, you know, the share of culture, local culture in the production and profits of global product. So what share of local culture or local economy in the production and profit of the global cultures? Take the example of, I'll tell two examples, okay. Take the example of Maggi masala noodles. So they have added an element of masala. It's so in order to give a local flavor to this product, and this will make noodles, even though it is strange, it's not a common thing in Indian culture, but still Maggi masala is a, you know, integrated, it's an integral thing to Indian culture. So in that way, Maggi will also, that noodles will also get integrated to Indian culture, and through making it Indian more, adding masala to it. So that's the first thing. So a kind of local culture has a share in this cultural product or this food product, Maggi masala, okay. That's one example. Another thing is that, you know, when certain global product arrives or place, certain indigenous and local produced things got less relevance, and people will be reluctant to buy them. And also we can see that the great MNCs, I mean big MNCs and the first world industries, they will have their production planned in our country, and they will pay taxes to our country, and we will have their product, and they will have the profit in that way. So what kind of production and profits that they are having as far as the global market, global product is concerned, and what kind of share of local culture and economy they are sharing with the local culture and the local economy, that is also needed to studied in post-colonial cultural studies. This kind of image is associated with the objects means its cultural values. So the material nature, the marketing and symbolic value, economic gains and losses, share of local culture and economy in that global product. So all these things are associated to images of these objects, okay. So it is also all are associated to the images of the object. So we need to consider these 5 things while we are doing a post-colonial analysis in cultural studies as well as any other cultural product is concerned. So as a conclusion, let me say that local cultural artifacts are now produced keeping a global market in mind. So it's not that somebody is having a production planned in our place, and we are only aiming at the local culture, local market. But anything that is produced in a culture, in a land, is aiming now the global market. And in the way global market, the products that are there in the global market is also available in local market too. This production of local or third world culture is often engaged in a relationship with the first world. So it's not that after post-colonialism or after colonialism there is a complete dealing between third world and first world countries. Third world countries are never free. First world countries always have a control over them through finances, through trade. Our countries controlled, our countries' finance and market and business and industries are controlled by a first world country. Then obviously we are not free. Our sovereignty is at question, right? If economically we are not free, fully free, then I don't think that we are completely free. So the relationship between local cultures and a first world market remains mostly a colonial one, where the local culture is exploited or exorcised by the first world. So what happens? There is a racialized side to this particular globalization. Globalization is not neutral like any other concept. So it's like Western people, or mostly the first world countries, they are exploiting the market of the third world countries. If you could see, the third world countries, they have more population in their lands. That means they have more manpower, so they need products more, so they need employment. For many of these kind of reasons, the first world market, they will establish their production plant in their territory in the third world countries, and in that way they'll exploit the first world. They will exploit the first world countries, they will exploit the market available in third world countries and also local cultures, and they are exploited and marginalized in such a way. So in that way globalization got a marginalizing tendency, exploiting tendency, and also it is a new way of colonizing third world countries by first world countries. Okay, so that's all about post-colonialism and cultural studies. If you have any more doubts and suggestions and queries, please mention all those in the comment section, or you can WhatsApp me or call me directly in this number and let's have a chat about it if you want. And also don't forget to follow me on Instagram. My ID is right here, and there I'm sharing on my Instagram page, I'm sharing a lot of free materials related to NTA, UGC, NET, JRF. That will be a real help for you in your NET, JRF studies. And also if you are seriously looking for some well-arranged, comprehensible and simplified study materials for UGC NET JRF preparations, English language and literature, then you can obviously visit my website www.highpoint.in. the link is there in the description box, or you can directly chrome this web address www.highpoint.in, and you can get into the website and have the free trial and see whatever we have provided there. And if you are interested in having 900 plus audio lectures and 300 plus downloadable materials and lively attemptable previous and practice set of question papers, then you can join us either of the courses. And once you have joined, you will get 2 benefits or 2 bonuses other than all these things that I have mentioned already. What are the 2 bonuses? You will get weekly test in every Saturdays, and you will also have a personalized study guidelines that we will discuss just after your admission to the courses. And also this personalized guidelines will be according to your schedules and your preferences of topics. So that's all about it. So if you are interested, let me know through Instagram, or you can message me directly in my WhatsApp number given here. So why waiting for next NTA UGC NET exam notification? Start studying today itself. Don't waste your time and don't wait for the perfect time. The time that you start learning, that you strive for something, that is the best time for you. So all the best for your studies, and if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and press the bell icon so that you don't miss any of the notifications whenever we upload something in this YouTube channel known as High Point. So that's all about it, guys. Happy learning, and thank you for watching this video so far. Let me meet you in the next video session, and bye bye.